everyone, and welcome to Worth the Calories. I'm Matthew Vose.
And I'm Catherine Vose.
This week we have been watching Vegan Week after eating our lovely Wagyu beef burgers.
Do you know, I hadn't even thought about the juxtaposition. That was some juxtaposition, wasn't it?
We didn't chime them together well, did we?
No.
Sorry.
But the Wagyu burgers had been promised for 4 months.
Yes, I was very pleased to finally get them. Thank you very much. Nice. Vegan Week, so we're down to, definitely in the second half, there was 6 left in the tent. Signature challenge, 8 tarts, 2 different flavours, 2 hours, no dairy, no meat. An interesting challenge, a little simple.
It did seem simple, and yet they didn't seem to all... Some of them pulled it off nicely. Some of them didn't. There were definite elements within there that I'd be interested to try.
Right.
And there was some of them did some really nice decoration that I think made the whole thing look very visually appealing.
Yeah,
Where's the pork?
I feel like not even where's the pork or bacon or something you might put on that. It's almost more make something that's not a quiche, but a small pie type thing. Because that would be the obvious thing, is to do a quiche if you're doing small tarts with this sort of flavour. Yeah. But you can't use eggs. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Nothing really struck me in it. Obviously, some people did. You're right. Some people did better. Kim Joy got a handshake, and other people got it's a decent job. It did okay. Maybe less filling could have been better, but it was all okay. No one did particularly bad. John's, I think he knew was not going to come out well. But even that, they really liked the flavours, particularly his falafel. Yeah,
I think John's were just slightly poorly executed, and I don't know if it was just because he wasn't on form this week because he's a bit of a meat man. Yeah. Or if he did overreach to try and overcompensate and therefore didn't have time to do what he'd planned to do.
On this one particularly, it felt like he hadn't practiced it.
Yeah.
Now, he said he had more filling at home, but okay, that's a big difference.
Huge.
Given how much space there was. So it's almost like he baked the tarts too big, but he had so much pastry over the edge.
Yeah, I was a bit confused. To be honest, I was a little bit confused why he was so bad in that first round. Because I'm just like, but I know he's better than that.
Absolutely.
So...
Yeah. I think we'll have more of a conversation on this at the end, but I really do feel like he looked at this and gone, I'm not going to be able to do this week.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my best effort, but this will be the one that pushes me too far.
Yeah.
So,
I guess that thing of competition being a mental game rather than a physical game from sport possibly also applies here. You know, if you tell yourself you're going to be a bit rubbish, maybe you are.
Yeah, and he seemed very pleased to have gone as far as he was, but not cut up. He was going now, and there were very few interviews with him, very few things of him looking emotional or stressed about it.
Yeah, it was just like, it's like, nah, not for me.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this. I guess some of it is, it's not the sort of thing I'd go to, almost like the technical last week as well. I don't tend to go to small pies and tarts.
Yeah, this is definitely not something I'd cook for you.
No.
And this is something, it's not something I'd buy for you from the deli counter. I know that this would not be a Matthew thing. I mean, there were certain things in there that I would...
Okay.
Pick out and
say... Yeah, what were the ones that really interested you?
So, not necessarily as the tart, but I was very interested in the French onions caramelised in... was it Prosecco?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel that there is somewhere within my cooking repertoire that one could insert some Prosecco caramelised French onions, possibly on a posh hot dog.
Right, yeah.
Because they did say it was a bit like hot dog onions.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can see that. If we get some posh sausages, I can do some posh onions.
And that was Bryony, who also did her other pie that was actually more sweet than savoury.
Yeah, that looked dreadful.
Yeah, possibly let her down a little bit. Again, it's Bryony cooks to our flavours.
Yeah.
And things that we go, oh yeah, that sounds good. And we'll see it with the other round as well.
Yep.
Were there any others that...
Rahul's chickpea curry pie I'd be interested in tasting that. I liked the look of it. I really like chickpeas.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a flavour that I'd like. Again, not sure I'm so fussed about having it in a pastry tart.
Yeah.
But as a filling, as a side curry dish, that I think is a flavour I'd be interested in trying. I was totally disinterested in Ruby's flavours. And I was curious as to why Manon chose to do chestnut and mushroom, because as far as I'm concerned, as much as I like mushroom as a flavour, anytime something is done with mainly mushroom in it, it just looks grey. Like mushrooms,
a bit grey, yeah.
Like mushroom soup. I actually really like the flavour of mushroom soup, but if you look at mushroom soup, it's like grey sludge.
Yeah.
So why would anyone think her pies would look anything other than grey sludge?
And her other one, she kept calling it ratatouille, but I feel like a ratatouille has more red to it. Hers was kind of the slices of some of the ingredients, but actually it was listed as aubergine and courgette.
Yeah, so it's deconstructed ratatouille.
Yeah. Whereas I would have expected a lot more tomato, maybe some pepper, maybe some, other ingredients in there.
Yeah.
That's probably the one, that and the chickpea one are probably the ones I would have gone to if I'd had to come up with something for them.
Yes.
I was impressed that they all, by and large, the pastry was fine. John had a bit of a problem, but by and large, it was all okay.
Yeah.
They'd figured out how to do it, and that, I think, was a lot of the challenge here.
Yes.
Was show us you can do pastry, and the fact that it went fine for all of them meant it had to be, okay, so let's see how the pie and the fillings come out, and let's talk about it in those terms.
Yeah, and I think because of that, it seemed a fairly flat round, if you know what I mean. There weren't a lot of peaks and troughs in this round.
No.
Everyone was much of a muchness.
Yeah, Raoul had poetry.
Yes.
For his...
Gurgy chat?
Googly?
I can't read my own handwriting. That's my problem.
And Kim Joy got a handshake.
Yeah.
I got Flavour Plus and very good job.
I'd be interested. It's difficult because whilst I love tofu done well in a nice restaurant, I have yet to be able to successfully create a tofu dish in my own home in this country that I enjoy eating.
Yeah, that looked very much like imported tofu as well.
Yeah.
So good stuff.
Yeah. Because in Japan, I'd merrily in the summer do exactly what she said. Get a block of nice tofu, grate some ginger over the top of it, bit of soy sauce. Beautiful on a hot day.
Right.
Not with anything I buy in Sainsbury's here.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Yeah.
So our technical was vegan pavlova, which we absolutely called.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like there should have been more... calamity is not the right word, but an expectation of people not being able to whip it because they talked about it being fragile, and the way Prue talked about it being fragile made me think it was that the egg, the fake egg, can lose its structure in the same way meringue can. That you can suddenly, now it's gone. Now I've lost it.
Yeah.
But they didn't have any problems whipping it up.
No.
There was Kim Joy had a second attempt because she wasn't happy about the way it happened the first time, and then. They had hers and it had all broken, and then when they had Raoul's second, they made a comment of, yes, the meringue's been whipped properly. So clearly something about the way she whipped it, whether it was over-whipped, under-whipped.
But somehow there wasn't enough air in there, which is why it's a bit flatter, I guess.
But by and large, the difference was the piping and the way they'd constructed it and had it broken when you moved it.
Yeah.
Which is the heat and the drying out of meringues.
And again, a very even round. Like, there wasn't a significant difference between 1 and 6, if I'm honest.
No. Yeah, the construction was the big difference there, I think.
Yeah. And I guess that's why, even though Kim Joy came last in that round, she was still able to walk away with Star Baker, because really it was not a nothing round, that's a bit harsh, but the difference between first and last was not significant enough that it could knock your whole day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your whole weekend.
I've got some comments of, like Manon and Ruby, the meringue, I've got meringue plus, with John, the creme patissiere plus.
Yeah.
But by and large, no other real comments. And particularly interesting that Bryony and Ruby had tried it before. 3rd and 5th. Yeah. No, 5th and 3rd, sorry.
Yeah. So clearly not a significant factor in the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. The whether you have worked with chickpea meringue or not doesn't actually make a difference because it works in largely the same way.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So our last one, the showstopper, a vegan celebration cake, 4 hours. So effectively, it was 4 hours to make 2 tiers. I think did they all go for 2 tiers?
Pretty much, yeah. I think they did.
And then some decorations as well.
Yeah.
And within those tiers, they were also layer cakes.
Yes.
I think for pretty much all of them, if not all of them.
Yeah, there seemed to be quite a uniformity in their approach to what a celebration cake is.
Yeah. There was a difference. I think who was using coconut oil? Manon was using coconut oil.
Right.
And Bryony was using actual oil.
Okay.
But even that didn't really get commented on in the end. There were other things to talk about in this round.
Yes.
But the actual baking of it, I think the veganness of it didn't make a difference.
No, I don't think I mean, perhaps some of the collapsing that took place, perhaps the difference in the ingredients in the cake may make the cakes less stable.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I genuinely don't know, but I've not seen that level of collapse happening in other cakes. So perhaps a vegan cake produces a slightly more delicate cake.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I absolutely have never tried this before.
Yeah.
But when they were tasting it, and they said they were going to judge it in the same way they would a normal cake, and yeah, it all seemed very normal, not too different at all. The comments were largely the same we've seen elsewhere. So the collapsing was 2 of them fell over.
Yeah.
One that we had been teased about last week.
Yeah.
And it absolutely was Ruby's, and one was in the fridge when it collapsed.
I think that's him trying to protect his shiny chocolate shards.
But can you leave it in the fridge whilst the tent gets cleaned up?
I guess so.
Because it seemed to be you put them on the end of the bench and then you walk away and leave it. It gets cleaned, you come back and you get judged.
Right?
Interesting.
Huh.
Don't know. But they'd both fallen over. Both of them were using a chocolate cake. I think both the Rowells were chocolate and coconut.
Yep.
With raspberry jam and then more coconut syrup.
Yep.
However, Ruby's was a chocolate and lemon, two different cakes.
Yep.
As soon as she said, I'm putting the chocolate on top, it just sets off alarm bells because it's a heavier cake. You introduce chocolate in something, once it starts setting, it makes it that much denser. You
absolutely called that straight away when we saw it. And it's like, makes me think, well, why did she put the chocolate on top? Because there didn't seem any aesthetic or flavour reason to put the chocolate on top.
Is it easier to make the lemon cake the larger one? Is that the thing?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Because there wasn't discussion of practicing at home and how it went at home.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more detail that would have been good for it. As ever with the Bake Off, we do have to shout out that it is great to see everyone coming around and helping. And just doing what they can to make it go right.
Yes, that was a group project to try and save Ruby's cake. That was very nice.
Yeah, I really like that. And it's one of the things everyone always comments on the show. And that's exactly the sort of thing you can point at.
Yeah.
It didn't go well, but they helped.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see that on whatever that thing we were watching, Project Runway.
Yes.
Yeah, they would not rally round and try to recut someone's trousers.
They'd be, well, no, not mainly, no, they'd be like ripping each other's program.
Yeah. Well, April over there picked the wrong material, and I could have told her that was going to happen, but I'm looking after my own thing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Stephen. I don't know, I can't remember any of their names. You're out. That's the thing?
Yeah. One day in fashion, one day you're in, and next day you're out.
You're out.
Except she does have a German accent rather than an American one, but never mind.
Let's not go there.
Let's not go there.
That's going to go very wrong. Cakes. What did you think of the cakes?
I want Bryony to make me that cake.
Yeah?
That looked damn good.
Yeah. The look of it. I'm not sure about the chocolate ganache. For what should have been a central thing of a celebration cake, the flowers stood out nicely, but the chocolate was okay. It's a chocolate iced cake. Had it had some other, a swirl of white chocolate or something in there, I would have felt more like it was a celebration cake.
Yeah,
but the flavours.
Yum, 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 yum. I'd eat that.
Yeah, again, she absolutely goes to flavours we both like. Yeah, it's hard not to root for her, isn't it, at that point?
Yeah.
But the raspberry, they loved it because, raspberry's a good flavour to include, anything like that, and the look of it was wonderful.
Yeah.
The piping she did, amazing.
That was a well-executed cake,
mm-hmm.
both taste and look.
Yeah.
That was a good cake. It wasn't necessarily a amazing, blow my mind, give me star baker cake,
mm-hmm.
but it was a very good solid cake.
Yeah, absolutely saved her from having gotten fifth in the technical.
Yeah. I felt bad for John.
Yeah.
Because actually I don't think his cake was as awful as Paul made out before it collapsed. It's just that, again, perhaps, I don't know if it's the heat as well. It did look a warm day.
Yeah.
But, it just had a little bit of a subsidence issue, didn't it?
It's hard because the decoration, I feel like he'd gone harder on the decoration than he normally would. I mean, the sort of leopard print was really well done.
Yeah.
He'd obviously worked on that. The piping on the one above it was very ordinary. And it's just trying too hard in one aspect and not enough in the other, and then it started collapsing, and he had a lovely stand made for it.
Yeah. I mean, the comment of crude seems harsh, but it was not inaccurate.
No.
For the upper layers as well. But I do feel that he'd gone for an overall interesting aesthetic. It wasn't that he just hadn't bothered.
Yeah.
And before it collapsed, looked all right. Bit quiche. Kitsch. Quiche.
A bit quiche.
Bit quiche.
Now, they said it tasted claggy. Now, when he was baking them, he thought it was claggy.
Yeah.
And he wasn't sure what had happened to them. Did he rebake it? Or did he serve the one that he knew wasn't that good? I couldn't tell.
I don't know.
Which made me think maybe he didn't, but also there was an implication of, I'm going to do that again.
Don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if he just served the one that he knew wasn't that good, because he'd kind of mentally given up anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, why bother rebaking if I'm going out anyway? Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but that could be very mean.
No.
But
I'm getting that impression, again, because we didn't see any level of upset from him. We didn't see him in any interviews like, oh, okay, I've got to work, I'm going to pull this back tomorrow, I'm going to do really well. Was he just like, yeah, I'm going home today, I'm going to do the best I can, but this is not going to be my thing.
Yeah.
So it will be really interesting to see him on Extra Slice and see if we can gauge any more. So I think this might be something to return to next week if we learn a bit more from it.
Agree.
I was disappointed they didn't mention Kim Joy's biscuits.
Because they look good.
Yeah, because certainly the thing we saw, at least since Flora, because Flora did this as well. She always did macaron or cookies or meringue kisses or something too much.
Yeah.
And they said, if you've baked them, we're going to judge them.
Yeah.
So I assume they tasted the biscuits and they were ordinary. They were good, but not worth commenting on.
I don't know.
But you want to see it, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, they look good.
This was a very strange week of Bake Off.
It did feel slightly out of kilter.
Yeah. I felt like the bakers were doing a lot of time talking to the camera, sharing jokes, making comments about what they were doing. And certainly that first day, the first signature challenge, doing very little talking to the judges and the hosts.
I agree.
And then when they were assembling everything, we got a very long bit of music that we'd never heard before.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether it was just they started playing the music earlier and there was so much going on and so much to show that the music ran longer than normal, but...
Yeah, but it just felt a little out of kilter.
Yeah, there's something just slightly strange. Even at the end, when they were doing the bit of discussion before they revealed the star baker and who was leaving, they always sit there with slices of the cakes in front of them. They didn't have anything on the table.
I wonder if that was because they all look so dry.
Well, vegan cakes start going off quicker because who knows? The other cakes, we've not commented on the other bakes in there. They all seemed fine.
Yeah, I'm interested to know how badly Manon's cake actually tasted.
Yeah.
Because it did look beautiful.
Yeah. The piping she did for her flowers was incredible.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to do that, and I do not think I'm ever going to be able to learn. That was so good. The comment in that final piece of, I would give Ruby higher marks than Manon because of how good Ruby's tasted and how bad Manon's did. That's quite something.
That is quite something. And that's little damning of Manon. Because if we think back over the series, I mean, she's done some beautiful things that were totally beautiful, but she has done a few things, I think, and this might be my memory playing tricks on me, but I feel like I've got the memory that she's done things which have looked better than they've tasted before.
Yeah, I think her flavour she's never quite gotten onto. I'm looking back over the other sheets that are spread out around us. I can see comments of good taste, but could do with less fish, or a bit messy and breaking up and things like that. So,
So maybe her flavour sense is not quite as good as it could
her
be.
aesthetic, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, arguably, and like when you look at cake decorating exhibitions and things like that, you can ice a box beautifully and it'll look beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, the icing and the decoration is a very different skill to the execution of the underlying bake. And so it's good. It's interesting and it's good to know that they are actually the underlying bake and the flavours of the main piece. That's what they're looking for on the show.
Yeah. It is nice to hear that from the judges and see it reflected in their comments. Although Ruby was seriously in trouble there.
Yeah, she really was.
And Manon didn't seem to think she was. Although, you know, she'd come second, she'd done a decent job in that first round.
Yeah, and she wasn't placed in their list of people that were up for going home.
No.
She was right in the middle, basically.
Yeah. Having done such a bad job on that last one.
Yeah. But that's 2 weeks in a row now that Manon's been... Well, she was poor last week all round. This week she wasn't poor all weekend, but that last cake was a definite miss.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where it goes next week.
Absolutely. Okay, so last week we made Puits D'amour.
Puits D'amour.
Wells of Love.
Puits D'amour.
And we made lots of jokes and puns on Wells of Love and other French phrases. So let's hear how that went. If we're gonna talk about this thing, let's record it from the beginning this time.
Yes.
If you listen to the last one, it's quite funny because there is this kind of, and let's listen to that conversation. So green cocoa butter, and it's just straight into the chat.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet because I just watched the episode, this week's episode yesterday.
Okay.
So I'll get there.
Okay. So we have made Puits D'amour.
Puits D'amour.
Just for full disclosure, we have literally just eaten Catherine's. She started baking them on Tuesday after the episode, and it's just finished. I can't believe they only had 2 hours for this thing.
It just the amount of chilling. I mean, there was over 2 hours of chilling. So yes. So I started probably about 8 a.m. I mean, I've been doing other things as well, but I started. I did a bit, chilled. Did a bit more, chilled.
Yeah.
And yeah, literally, we've just eaten the first two. We haven't assembled the rest of the ones I've made yet. We've just got a bowl of creme pat and a bowl of compote in the fridge and some empty puffed up shells cooling. But it's not a quick bake, is it?
No,
not at all.
How long did it take you, Mandy?
I think altogether it was about 3 hours. Because I sped up the chilling process by putting it in the freezer.
Okay.
Fair enough. I wonder if they were doing that in the show.
I don't know, but they were doing more layers. A couple of them were doing, rather than fold one in and one in thirds, they were folding it in quarters, so you end up with 4 layers. So doing the lamination in theory a bit quicker.
Yeah.
But also they're quicker at making it, and then they have everything else ready, and
yeah. Fair enough.
Which is fair, they are very good bakers.
Yeah, I guess they weren't coming upstairs and working on a Word document in between
exactly,
sections like I was.
Stopping, making breakfast, going back to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Realising you didn't have enough eggs, going to the supermarket.
Yeah, we've used a lot of eggs this weekend.
I can imagine. I used a lot of eggs because I had to do 2 batches of the creme pat, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start there then. How come you made 2 batches?
So, corn flour in the UK and cornstarch in the US are not exactly the same thing.
Okay.
And so when I used 40 grams of cornstarch in the recipe, it basically turned into a solid mass.
Oh dear.
Ooh.
And I did get it to go through the sieve, but it was not appetizing at all. It was really weird gluey texture. Okay. So I scrapped that and remade it. And the second time I made it, I didn't quite get it thick enough because I overcorrected the amount that I put in it. but it was delicious.
Interesting. We'll have to work that because there was only a little bit in last week's, or whatever, in the blancmange. I think it was a little bit of corn flour.
Right.
But probably not enough to really impact it.
Yeah. That one, I think, because it was such a small amount and there was so much liquid, it was okay. But putting in equal amount of sugar and cornstarch here was way too much. And so I think I went down from like 40 grams to around 15. And then I added a little more slowly to see if I could get it to thicken up more. But I was afraid I was going to overdo it again. And so I, like, out of fear, stopped just short of where it really needed to be.
Okay, yeah.
I think my creme pat's a little runny. It seemed all right when I did it, but now having spooned it into the centre of the Puits D'amour, I don't think these are a transportable dessert. As much as people at work and my friends who I'm seeing tomorrow night are like, "Oh, bring us some Puits D'amour," I think that's going to be a disaster if I try and take that on the train for an hour.
I don't know. Assemble them and chill them. You might get away with it. At the very least, you can take mine. Because my creme pat's set very nicely.
Your creme pat's lovely.
I was very pleased with it. Not as vanilla-y as yours. Now, it was a question I had for the two of you. At what point did you take the vanilla pod out of the mixture?
Oh, I just left it in the mix and the stuff that sieved out.
Okay.
So mine was vanilla. Was that not right?
Mandy?
I didn't actually use a vanilla pod because I had that lovely jar of vanilla paste from a few weeks back. And I used that instead.
Good shout.
I thought about that, but I'm aware it's high in sugar content or something. I was like, oh, I don't want to. I was wary of using it. I didn't know what it was going to do. I took the vanilla pod out at the point, I think, when I poured the milk into the eggs.
Right.
Just because I was like, okay, clearly it's going to go into the sieve, but at this point, I don't think it's going to add too much more. But I wonder if it actually does. Who knows?
Don't know.
Okay. Puits d'Amour, Wells of Love.
Puits d'Amour.
Puits d'Amour. Je t'adore, Puits d'Amour. Had a number of stages. You had to make a rough puff pastry, chill it, fold it, chill it, fold it, chill it, fold it until doomsday. Make a compote, make a creme pat, make some choux pastry, chill everything again and again, then cook it, then assemble it.
And chill it.
Oh, and then chill it after cooking it,
after
and then
cooking
assemble it.
Yeah.
Had anyone else made rough puff or any puff pastry before?
I'd not made any of the elements of this before.
Okay.
I hadn't either.
Okay. I think I've done rough puff once before, and I didn't like it. I've done puff pastry before, and as much as I didn't like it, it was easier. There's something about rough puff that I find I can't do the layers very well. It just didn't seem to maintain its layers, probably in the rolling and the folding, or I melted the butter or something. Don't know.
I wonder if it's because I mean you are basically a human furnace, and I wonder actually if but I genuinely think part of the point of the chilling and the using the frozen butter is to try and keep the dough as cold as possible at every stage. So I was trying to touch it as little as possible. And I wonder if perhaps if you were finding it challenging, it's just because you are very warm-blooded. Your sheer heat, exactly. Don't know.
Yeah, I did try grating the butter by holding it in kitchen paper. So I wasn't directly touching it, so just trying to be a bit better. And then I ended up grating kitchen paper into it.
Nice.
Oh, no.
So I stopped doing that really quickly.
I really did not enjoy grating frozen butter.
Really?
No, not at all.
It really irritated me. And I think it's because at first I thought, I know what would be efficient is if I just hold the grate over the bowl and grate directly into the bowl, but then it wasn't falling off the grate. And in the end, I grate it because we've got one of those graters where you've got a lid and a box into which the grated produce falls. And in the end, I actually found it was easier just to grate into that box and then dump it in. But yeah, not fun. How did your rough puff go, Mandy?
It was challenging. Partly so grating the frozen butter was difficult, especially towards the end because I was trying very hard not to cut myself because I'm really good at cutting myself in the kitchen. But the butter that I used was white, not yellow, and so it was really hard to see it anyway when I was rolling the dough out to make sure that it hadn't melted.
Right.
And so I think it probably did melt a little bit. And I think I overworked it trying to get it to roll and roll it uniformly enough where I could actually fold it where there were layers everywhere, if that makes sense. I don't know how you guys do it or how the folks on the show do it, but everybody that I saw do this had this perfectly rolled out rectangle, and that just did not happen.
Mine was not perfect. It was virtually not a rectangle, but I figured I'm cutting shapes out. Who cares if it's roughly the right thickness?
Right.
Who cares if it's a rectangle or not?
Yeah. So I
Plus,
think
they only had to make
between me
6.
trying to get it uniform and also trying to roll out the layers, I overworked it, because when I baked it, it ended up not really puffing. Like, it had layers, but it was very crispy and didn't really puff at all.
Yeah, I think we ended up with something fairly similar for me. But Catherine, yours rose very nicely. You were worried about the puffiness.
Yeah, mine puffed so much that in the middle I was worried about. In fact, I still am with some of the ones left, because I chose some of the less puffed ones to try just now. But they've puffed right up in the middle of the shoe, so there's almost no well in my well d'amour.
Dome d'amour.
Dome d'amour, exactly. But I wonder partly, is that because I didn't pay? It's not that I didn't take care, it's just I didn't even think about, does the butter look evenly spread? I just kind of bashed it about as little as possible and then stuck it in the fridge.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also think the difference possibly between mine and Matthew's is that because of the emergency egg buying mission, the oven was warming for about 45 minutes before I put anything in it, and our oven's not necessarily the most reliable on temperature. So I think because I had it heating up for so long, I think it has more chance that the oven was actually at the right, at sufficiently hot enough heat to go straight in and heat the pastry up. I wonder if what the oven was saying was 200 degrees for Matthew might not have actually been 200 degrees. Who knows?
Maybe. Because your shoe also rose really nicely. That is a very nice shoe pastry that you've made there.
Get in.
With emergency eggs.
With emergency eggs, exactly.
Next on the list of things to do was compote. Hull lots of strawberries, cook lots of strawberries and sugar, add some raspberries, add some lemon juice. Bish bash bosh. Any interesting things happen when making compote?
I thought it was the most delicious thing ever.
Yeah?
I'd make that again.
Absolutely.
On ice cream.
Did you add raspberries?
I did.
Oh.
I figured because there was such a high ratio of strawberries to raspberries that it would be okay, and the raspberries would just give it that little extra color and like tartness. And that's exactly what happened, and I could eat that stuff by the spoonful.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I'm a fan of the compote. More than I mean, I liked the jam that we did for the wagon wheels, but I prefer the compote, and I can definitely see room for more compote in my life.
Yes.
Nice. Now, I didn't chop my strawberries up, because it just said strawberries hull, so I put them in whole, and then they'd still maintain some of their structure, so their shape by the end of it, so I end up using a bit of a spoon to bash them and make it a bit thinner. Did you guys cut them up? Did you have any issues with that?
I learned from your experience and I cut mine up.
I cut mine in half generally, and then while I was stirring it, I used the spoon to kind of cut them a little bit smaller.
Right.
So I think all of my pieces ended up being about the size of the raspberries, although the raspberries completely fell apart in the heat. The strawberries kind of, they ended up in much smaller pieces than when I started.
Nice. Yeah, and I ended up using a wooden spoon just to mush it all down, and it worked. Because I was just shaking it to stir it, like you do. Hey-ho. Creme pâtissière. We've touched on it a little bit. I have a question for both of you. How do you separate yolks from whites? Do you shell juggle?
Yes.
I shell juggle a bit. I mean,
Okay.
but I obviously make sure my hands are extremely clean before I start. I shell juggle a bit, but then I pour the last little bit into my hand and just catch the egg yolk with my fingers and then drop it into the egg yolk bowl.
Right. I like it.
Yeah, I shell juggle, except for the one where I dropped the whole yolk into my discarded egg whites and had to use my hands. But I rescued it, so it was fine.
Yay.
I had that happen on 2 of them. And we have a little silicone fish thing that you use to suck up the egg yolk. So I sucked it back out of the white and dropped it in.
Is that what that fish is for?
Yes.
Oh, I did wonder what this little fish was doing on the side. I was like, what part of the bake does that thing come into?
Yeah, you sort of squeeze it together and then release it either next to the egg yolk.
Right.
And it sucks the egg yolk in.
Oh.
And then you just go bloop into your egg yolks.
Oh, I want to try that.
Oh, you can.
Oh.
You can.
I can.
You can. I got really worried at the thickening stage, so I was like, this is kind of thicker, this is kind of thicker, this is kind of... Oh, no, it's really thick. Quick, take it off now.
The turning point of it not being thick enough and then being thick was a surprise. Also, the lumpiness of it before it goes through the sieve was a surprise to me.
Yeah, I was looking at that sieve like, is that just to get the vanilla pod out? Because I can see the vanilla pod. This is going to be really easy. Oh, no, it's because of the massive lumps of creme patissiere.
I don't know. How did you find it, Mandy? Was it a surprise to you as well?
It was, especially the first time, but that's when it went horribly wrong and was one giant lump.
Yeah, fair enough.
A bit more like a mousse or a blancmange, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was awful. And the second time, there were a few lumps, but not as many. And I think that's just because I didn't have enough of the thickener in it.
Yeah.
But I would rather have too few lumps than too many.
Yeah. We found we had quite a bit of creme patissiere left over.
Yes.
After piping it, and I think particularly for me, because I sort of piped to fill the well, but watching the show back, they piped at least another layer above the well as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well. So they actually put a lot in there. I think I should put more on. So, we each had a little bowl of creme patissiere after making it. It was very tasty.
Yeah, I could happily sit and eat that out of a bowl with a spoon.
Well, you've got bits of puff pastry left over.
I have.
So that would be fun.
Just dip it.
Just
do it.
Yeah.
I took all the leftover bits of puff pastry when I cut out the circles. I stacked them up and basically cooked a pile of puff pastry, which was raw in the middle, because I should have thought, of course it's going to be raw in the middle. I've seen what happens on this show when people try to cook too much pastry. I wish I'd cooked chunks as well, like you.
Yeah. Although mine, so my leftover bits, I just put them in, and they are a little burny. But I guess that's because the actual cases had the shoe on top of the puff pastry to stop it just being totally burned around the edges.
So when you cut the circles out, you have to prick it with a fork.
Oh, I didn't do that.
Well, yeah, I'm wondering if that's why yours rose so much.
Yes, that there you go. That's why my puff pastry puffed in the middle, right, because I totally forgot about pricking it with a fork.
I was about to say, I'm not sure why we had to do that. Okay, we have evidence for why.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't very good at reading the detail of the instruction. I'd read the instruction, but also because I was reading the instructions on my phone, and then my phone automatically locks after about 30 seconds. So then I'd have filthy hands, or rather dough-filled hands, and I'd have to try and open my phone again and take the digit lock off. And obviously it's not going to read my fingerprints when my hands are covered with dough. So I was working off memory for a lot of the instructions, which is why I kept forgetting details like pricking the circles and brushing the choux pastry with egg and sprinkling sugar nibs.
Spare one, I brushed half it with egg and half it not. And you can see the difference in the glossiness, but that's all it does, basically. It just add a little bit of sheen.
Fair enough. Well, mine's just rough and ready.
Nice.
No sheen.
How was the cutting in circles for you, Mandy?
It was fine. I didn't have any trouble with it. I had also I forgot to prick with the fork until after I had chilled it, and I chilled it in the freezer so that it would happen quickly. And so the dough was very, very, very hard because it's almost to the point of frozen when I pulled it out. And so that probably adversely affected the baking as well.
Right.
But I was able to, prick it with the fork right before I put the choux pastry on.
Nice.
Mind you, it doesn't take long for things to warm. It's probably only a difference of 30 seconds to get to the right heat anyway.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay, choux pastry. The last bit that we had to actually make. I found the instructions a little vague on the adding of the egg. Like, beat 2 eggs, then add it a bit at a time until it's stiff and glossy.
Yeah, what does stiff and glossy mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I only added 1.5 eggs worth of my beaten eggs in the end, because I got to the point where I was like, actually, I think my dough is going to become loose after this, and it looks like a decent consistency. I'm happy to define it as stiff and glossy, and I've got very little time before we're due to podcast, so crack on, basically. But yeah, about 1.5 eggs went into my choux.
Yeah, I think that's maybe what I ended up with, because I assumed like at least 1 egg had to go in. Because if it was 1 egg's worth, she would have told us to only use 1 egg.
Mm-hmm.
So it was at least 1. So I put in, probably half the mixture. And then kept doing it. And every time I'm like, it is stiff and glossy. I don't know what more. Is it not stiff and glossy enough? Is it too stiff and glossy? Is it?
But that's the thing with baking. I think until you've done something and it's gone well, you haven't got that learned memory of what it going well looks like or what it going slightly badly looks like.
Yeah, it's better to know what happens when it goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, I'm not really a baker, but what I'm finding from doing these exercises is that this is not an activity where a theoretical knowledge will suffice. You have to have a crack and actually get a feel for what the different things do and look like whilst you're doing them. I don't know. I was trying to make a pun with shoe. How was it for shoe, Mandy?
Oh, Lord.
Oh, you should see Matthew's expression now. I think I'm going to get kicked off the podcast.
Making shoe pastry hurt my arm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the constant beating with the wooden spoon, just trying to get it and get those eggs in. Like, my arm was really tired when I was done.
Oh.
I had a sore right arm as well after finishing the beating in the shoe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I didn't use all of the eggs either, and it was not because I thought it was stiff and glossy, it was just because I was tired and my arm didn't want to work anymore.
When I was watching the episode back, so I wanted to see sort of answer some of the questions I had about the making of it, having made it. I was interested to see Bryony, because I was like, oh, it's quite interesting. How does she actually do this? Because you've got to be fairly dexterous for this. She holds the actual pan.
All right.
And then in her other hand, then mix it all. But she's like almost right on the heat with it. Yeah. No wonder she has plasters on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so once doing all that, we assemble it, we pipe it a little bit in to form a ring, to form a well. How did that go for everyone?
He says pointedly at Mandy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how, Catherine, you said you were having some trouble reading the instructions on your phone?
Uh-huh.
Well, I missed one single word in the instructions, and it completely messed up the entire assembly process.
Egg.
Not egg. Not egg. So it says to pipe a ring of shoe pastry 1/2 centimeter in from the edge of the disc. I missed the word in. And so I piped my shoe pastry 1/2 inch from the edge of the shoe pastry. And I thought it was weird, but I was like, both of these things are supposed to rise, so maybe they will connect in the middle.
That could have been lovely. It could have been like a sort of an expanded. Yeah, I can see.
Hoop of love.
I can see where your faith in the magic of baking could have led you to make that conclusion.
That's exactly what it was. Exactly. I was like, that's what the directions say, so I'm just going to do it. But in fact, that is not what the directions said.
Awesome.
I missed one 2-letter word, and it completely threw off the entire thing.
Oh.
Now, to be fair, I think you haven't seen the episode.
I had not. No. If I had seen the episode, it would have made perfect sense. And I cannot wait to make these again and do it right. I did get 3 of them. I got it just far enough away so that when they did expand, they touched and it created a solid disc.
Nice.
And those were the ones that I filled for the photographs. So the photographs actually look nice. And if you didn't know what it was really supposed to be, you'd think, oh, that's great. But the rest of them, completely unable to assemble. I had to dip. Tear and dip to get all of the flavors together.
But it still tasted good, though.
Oh, it was absolutely delicious.
It sounds like it's got a kind of eaten mess of love.
Yeah. Nice. I can imagine, actually, just chopping the different bit, maybe snipping up the choux pastry and then putting some compote and then some creme pat and then sticking the hard puff pastry bit on top. I can imagine that as a deconstructed Puits D'amour.
Abstract
it could be
Puits d'Amour.
abstract. Yeah, it still works.
I like it. That's good.
Yeah. So that's also why I ran out of choux pastry. I couldn't figure out why I didn't have enough, but it's because I was piping way more on each one than needed to be.
Yeah, 'cause I ended up with loads of choux pastry left. I was a bit disappointed when I started washing up and I realised quite how much I was wasting. But it was too late by that point.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to cook it
Been in the wet water
with
already,
the washing up liquid on top of it.
I also made the same mistake that Dan made in the episode, and I opened the oven.
Opening the oven. Okay.
So my choux pastry also did not rise as much as it was supposed to.
Right.
Yeah. I made the same mistake, but I took the briny route. I banged it in the oven because I was like, oh, I've got to get it in the oven. And that's when I was like, oh, sugar. I have forgotten my sugar.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten to brush it with egg. But I was just like, well, it's in now.
Okay.
I remembered the nib sugar, sprinkled it all over. It was quite interesting, the stuff that didn't actually land on the cakes, because it melted into a kind of caramel puddle, which was quite interesting. Little drops of caramel all over the baking tray. I didn't notice it in the final flavour. I don't think the nib sugar adds anything whatsoever.
Yeah. I dropped some over the top right at the very end before we're served ours, just because I'm like, well, we've got it. Might as well use it. But yeah, I don't think that was the point of the whole.
No, I think it adds a bit of sweetness because they're not quite savoury pastries, but they're not sweet.
There's not a lot of sugar in there, is there?
I don't taste them and go, oh, yeah, I can taste the sweetness too, though.
Was there any sugar in the pastries?
No.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I think that's why. Because, I mean, there's plenty of sweetness from the creme pat and the compote, but still you want some tiny bit of sweetness in the pastry. But, yeah, I didn't get a lot of sugar on mine either, because sugar nibs is not something that's easily found here.
Right.
And so what I did, I looked up, is there a way to make sugar nibs? And basically what I heard was buy sugar cubes and just beat them with a mallet until you get chunks. Right. Which is what I did, but they were not uniform, and they certainly did not look anywhere as nice as the sugar you guys used.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I'm not fussed about using that. I could see myself sprinkling it on cupcakes or cakes I've got a buttercream on or something to add a little bit of sort of crunchy texture maybe, but yeah.
Meh.
I wish I'd had more compote, if I'm honest. That was the thing. I got to the end, and I don't know whether I've reduced it a bit too much and hadn't ended up with enough. But certainly, again, watching the show, they just had a load of strawberries and raspberries and thrown them in. I followed the actual amount for this, and I wish I'd had a little bit more to spread around.
I just used all the strawberries and raspberries we had left in the fridge.
Okay. Oh, you had a lot of raspberries in yours then.
There we go.
Okay.
So, because I was about to say, because I feel like I've got lots of compote, but equally, I was just like, we've got them, I'll just bang them in. It can't hurt.
I think you have used twice as many raspberries as the recipe.
Right. Meh.
Which is why yours is nice and juicy.
It is. It
is. And that's interesting as well, because I feel like the lemon juice is a little high. I think it's also there for some of the chemical composition of lemon juice, in that it helps with this stuff, but I feel I've got a slight tang to mine that I wish wasn't there.
And I see, I like the tang to yours because I think I find the sweetness of the creme pat a little overwhelming without the corresponding tang of the lemon juice. And mine are okay, but because yours are a little bit tangier, I prefer that even more.
Oh, okay.
But then that's because I've got a less sweet tooth than you.
That's your flavour, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's talk flavours. This is not my flavour. I like the creme pat. I quite like the compote. I'm not too fussed about the pastries because I like a sort of chocolatey and a biscuity kind of flavour. What did you guys think on tasting them? Mandy, what did your other half think on tasting them?
Oh, he loved it. Yes. He did the same thing I did. As after it was finished, we both went, and because I only assembled the two for us to try because they were such a disaster from the piping mistake. But we went and just started dipping bits into the compote and the creme pat. So 100%, I loved this. It's my favorite thing that we've made from the show so far. It's clearly not the best assembled thing that I've done so far, but for me, it was definitely the best tasting, and I am absolutely going to make it again and try to get it right.
I think I'd probably agree. Other than I think the naans are something I'd use. That appeals to my practicality. But this was very much my sort of flavour. I'd even though it was a right royal pain in the Puits D'amour to make, I think I would possibly make it again.
Okay. Well, part of the thing is, I think I'm not sure when I can see these being eaten. I mean, it really does feel like the sort of French afternoon in a cafe with a coffee or a tea.
I would serve it when the girls came round.
Okay.
So, like, if I had, if I had a bunch of friends coming round for tea, afternoon tea, or even I could see this with a glass of champagne.
Yeah, because it doesn't feel like a pudding, a dessert, and it feels a little heavy. I don't know, a little heavy. I think just for that kind of afternoon cake. But also because it's not my flavour, it's not the sort of thing I'd order in a patisserie.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. I think it's just a preference and a taste thing. But yeah, I would merrily eat these till the cows came home.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Basically,
like I can see myself making these for a birthday, for Mother's Day, for Christmas, anytime that there are going to be people at my house eating food. I'd go for this, absolutely.
Oh, nice. It sounds like this would be your, if you had to go on the extra slice and redo a bake that you weren't so happy with, is exactly what you'd go for, Mandy.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Nice.
Because I know that I imagine that if I did it right, it would taste even better. You know, since my creme pat wasn't quite thick enough and my choux pastry didn't rise, but it still was delicious like that. Like, I can't wait to see what it would taste like if I got it right.
Yeah, likewise. I'm intrigued to see what would the bake be like if I'd actually pricked the puff pastry.
Yeah.
You know, how would it all have looked if I'd done the sugar nibs and the brushing with the egg and stuff like that.
Perhaps we could do a one-off in the gap between the seasons, and we each do a bake of something we wanted to do and try and do it really well again.
Yeah.
Could be interesting. Okay. Any final thoughts, comments on the Puits D'amour? Did you try blowtorching, Mandy?
I did. I actually went out and bought a blowtorch just for this.
Okay.
The first time I ever used one, and it was so much fun.
Nice.
I don't think it added anything to the flavor, but it made it pretty.
Yeah, it's definitely a look thing, 'cause otherwise it's a plate of beige.
Yeah.
Okay, so next week, how are we doing with chickpeas? What are our opinions on them?
I don't like hummus.
Yep. Okay.
So I should tell you right there, I don't like chickpeas, but I don't think anybody's surprised because I never like anything, apparently.
Well, yeah. Because I think it's going to be using chickpea juice. The source of chickpeas. I don't know. I have heard you can use it for instead of egg whites.
Yes, I've heard that many times.
So that's what I think is going to be the vegan. What might even be a pavlova from the shots we were shown, not just vegan meringues.
Before we end, I wanted to follow up on the blancmange because I did freeze some of it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that didn't work out.
What happened?
You could taste the flour, the almond flour.
Oh.
Whereas you couldn't when it was still just the gel, the creamy gel.
Okay.
Once it was frozen, that flour taste is all that came through, and it was really weird.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, I don't recommend doing that.
Did you eat it frozen or did you defrost it?
Frozen.
Okay.
I mean, we had to let it defrost a little bit because it was rock solid. But I tried to eat it as frozen as possible, like the way you would with ice cream or something. And it was just
That's
weird.
a shame because then, yeah, if you could have had it frozen, you could have done like an ice cream float. Poured some lemonade over the top of it or something.
Yeah, no, I just don't recommend it.
No, okay,
fair
we
enough.
will not
We
do that
should
thing.
not do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll speak to you next week.
Yes, we will.
Bye, Mandy.
Bye.
D'amour.
Je t'adore.
Je t'adore. D'amour.
And they've all been polished off by now.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And you did manage to take that, I think, just to finish up from people having just heard us, considering whether you could get them to work. Although I might have edited out your discussion of whether you could ice them in the office. But you did manage to transport them into town.
I did. And I gave one at work to my colleague Marlene, who sent me an instant message of yum with all the and I took the rest to my knit night with my friends. And we sat in the foyer of the Royal Festival Hall with our knitting, a bottle of Prosecco, eating Puits D'amour, and really entertaining tourists from Cornwall who insist on taking photos of us.
Oh, really?
Exactly.
Wow, look at these crazy London folk.
Exactly. Knitting and eating Puits D'amour.
Puits D'amour, nice. Nice, but they all went down well.
They all went down very well.
So this week is vegan pavlova. Meringues. Shall we talk meringues a bit?
We do have a history of meringue pain in this household.
Yeah, I keep trying. I want to be someone who can, because meringues are not too difficult, he says. I want to be someone who can knock out a decent batch of meringue kisses that are in interesting colours and interesting flavours and be like, oh yeah, I just threw these things together. And not every time I try, most times that I try, I end up doing something that causes the meringues collapse as I'm mixing it.
It's interesting because I don't think I'm able to say what the differences are between the days where there is meringue trauma and the days when there is meringue triumph.
Yeah.
And it's a stark difference. There is no in-between with meringues.
Yeah. It's got a big difference on my emotions, I'll tell you that. So, this is going to be what is described as more delicate, mixing... I can't even remember what they're called. Agrabah? No, that's where Aladdin lives.
Aquafarmer.
Aquafarber. Farber? Farmer?
Farmer.
Aquafaber. Aquafarber.
Ah.
Aquafaber. Which, again, sounds like where Aladdin lives.
I've written down Aquafarmer, like big pharmaceutical companies from the water.
Watery drug company.
Exactly.
Aquafaba. So using chickpea juice to make meringues, then making a non-dairy crème pâtissière and covering it in some fruit. And some chocolate, apparently. Oh, you put chocolate on the bottom of the discs. Yes. Easy. Easy peasy?
I don't know. It looked... They looked to make an easier job of it than I thought they would. Whether we will have the same joy at home is to be seen.
Yeah. Look, go on.
I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous of handling the very delicate meringue and putting chocolate on the bottom of it.
Well, I think this is one where, again, we'll divide and conquer.
Yep.
So if I do the meringues...
Yep.
Because, frankly, I want to do this...
you are going to be Meringue Matthew.
Yes, Meringue Matthew.
Double M.
Yeah, that's my superhero name.
Exactly.
I throw the meringue and clank them up. I don't know.
You get them so buzzed on sugar with your meringues.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at the recipe, there is also coconut pastry cream. Mm-hmm. There is mango coulis. Mm-hmm. And there is filling and topping. And then decorating with vegan white chocolate and coconut flakes. So if you can do the coulis and the coconut pastry cream.
I can do that.
And chop up fruits and things go on top.
Yep.
And then we can assemble.
Yep.
Yeah?
Absolutely. Please don't make me spread chocolate on the bottom of your beautiful meringues.
I will do the touching of meringues.
Excellent. Meringue Matthew.
Meringue Matthew will touch all the meringues. Be careful of my deadly Pavlova. Watch out for my rolling roulade.
It's the power Pavlova move.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm just a wrestler, isn't it? And then next week, looking ahead, 5 bakers left, Danish week. And they're all wearing Hawaiian shirts like John did.
Oh, bless them.
It breaks my heart a little bit.
Bless them, yeah.
That's lovely.
It is.
And it shows quite how friendly they are. Having seen pictures of them getting together to watch the show together and things like that, and then seeing it even as they were doing it, like John's absence was going to be felt, so they did a thing to honour him.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I mean, I know they get friendly every year, but this year's feels like a closer bunch than normal. It feels very nice.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Danish week?
Oodle foodle. I speak no Danish.
That's Dutch, isn't it?
It was when I pretended I could speak Dutch.
Danish donuts, we think, is the technical.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
So it'll be interesting to see what the cooking method is, whether that needs to be fried, whether it's baked.
Yep.
Give that a go.
Yeah, it looked quite tasty.
Okay, so we shall be back next week, having done a chickpea meringue and coconut crème pâtissière.
I like coconut, so actually I'm positive about how that could come out.
Yeah. I'm going to be interested in finding all the ingredients, because it's a slightly random list of ingredients at places where it is things like vegan chocolate or vegan something, you know, a very non-dairy version of something, but then there's coconut yogurt. I'm trying to look. Xanthan gum. Ooh. I'm not sure what xanthan gum is. There's things in there that I'm going, oh, okay, that's different. I'll be interested to see what it's like finding these things.
I think you might be pleasantly surprised, by how easy it is to find coconut yogurt, because I think I've seen it on the shelves of Sainsbury's.
Okay.
Because I think there's quite a lot of, in the yogurt shelves, there's a number of non-dairy options for people who have dairy problems.
Well, there's a whole end of the unit thing in our Sainsbury's, so... Ocado, we will be coming for you, seeing what you can do for us.
Indeedy.
And we will be back next week with some chickpea meringues.
Yep.
And talking about Danish week.
Yep.
Speak to you then.
Bye.